Now, whether you're using social media as a content creator, an influencer, or just simply for your own personal life, you're posting your photos, maybe your family photos on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, it's really important to think about these 5 factors. Number one, think about why you're posting. A lot of times, as human beings, because often safety has hinged upon how socially accepted or liked we all think about the primitive ages. Those who were well liked were more likely to survive and advance because if they were hurt or low on resources, their fellow neighbor was more likely to help them if they liked them. So, this is kind of ingrained in our wiring. We want the world to like us. Now, because these platforms create a very wide cast net as to who we can gain that acceptance and liking from, it creates a little bit of an external locus of control, meaning our command center for our perceived worth or identity comes from external sources outside of us. How many likes? How many follows? Now, if this is the case, then it might be an unhealthy relationship we have with our social media accounts, because let's say we post something and it doesn't get a lot of attention, then we start to have perceived low self-worth. And if it does get a lot of likes and attention, then that goalpost just starts moving further and further away. We internally think, oh, I'll be satisfied with 10K followers. But really, once you hit that mark, it doesn't satiate or satisfy what we were yearning for, which was that outside love and attention, because the true source of why we're yearning for this is not actually coming from our followers. It's coming from some previous wound or unmet needs in terms of our acceptance and belonging. So essentially, important factor number 2 is analyze who is that invisible panel of judges that you might have in the back of your mind that is always kind of your barometer and standard that you're checking in with, in terms of usually this panel of judges, this elusive imaginary panel of judges that we keep in the back of our brain, are the people that we perceive to not like us, or the people that are the most difficult people in our lives, past and present, the ones that maybe we've had conflict with, anybody that you feel like you haven't attained true acceptance from. That's usually the kind of subliminal driving force behind where we actually trying to get that acceptance from, and what is the wound that is driving us to be externally focused. This brings us to our third point, the importance of not taking anything personally and being able to have a very thick skin. Now, I myself find the mean comments very comical. They're usually along the lines of correcting my Punjabi, or some very light-hearted, funny ones. Like I think one that I got a good chuckle out of was "Chup karke jaake roti bana." Just very silly, kind of topical, nonsensical kind of comments that really don't land anywhere too deep for me. They kind of, it just rolls off my back. But sometimes it's not as easy to do that. So judge where you're at in terms of, can you handle malicious wording or judgments or slander? If you don't feel like your confidence and self-esteem is prepared for that, then that means you're too vulnerable to the type of language that usually comes out in the social media space. Now, why do these keyboard warriors use the social media comment section specifically? It's because it has all the perfect storm variables. They are anonymous usually, so they are protected in terms of not being able to be identified. Usually the profile photo is black, and it's like a random username, so they don't think it can be traced back to them. Also, it's human nature to try to project unhappy emotions or feelings of powerlessness in other spaces onto a space where they feel like they do have power. So usually trying to put down somebody who's being vulnerable, as is the case for most social media content creators. There's some sort of vulnerability in whether you're showing your outfits, your makeup, using it as a mental health tool, or whatever else people use social media for. There's vulnerability involved, right? So that susceptibility, it attracts the type of people who aren't comfortable with showcasing that type of vulnerability within themselves, and they see it as an opportunity to project and displace emotions that usually have nothing to do with the video itself. It's just their outlet. Now, next up, be prepared to be very cautious and weary in terms of collaborations. As your numbers grow, so too will opportunities. So this kind of falls in line with our last point of not taking anything personally, but also just being cautious and being aware of what type of people do you want to collaborate with. Do a good screening in terms of what's the type of messaging they put out. There's a lot of mental health practitioners out there, but everybody has their own ideologies and approaches, and sometimes they conflict. Sometimes everyone's not on the same wavelength, and that's okay because there's a wide array of clientele who have different mentalities, personalities as well. So there's a practitioner for everybody, but just make sure that in this example, I'm talking about mental health, social media platform. Just make sure whoever you're connecting with shares the same values as you. Last but not least, be sure that when you're posting, if you are doing it professionally or personally, you're limiting your own screen time. There is quite an addictive component when it comes to the type of stimuli and interaction that we get from these phones and these social media platforms. Be mindful that you are not developing an unhealthy attachment to checking the views, checking the comments, seeing the feedback. If the feedback is landing in a healthy space for you, meaning it is not connected to your self-worth, but it's simply there for curiosity and analysis and reflection, then there usually isn't an addictive component to being a content creator or using it for your personal self. But if this platform is fused to your self-worth and identity formation and confidence levels, then there usually is going to be an addictive component to how much screen time you are investing into your social media platforms. I hope you found this helpful. What are some of the funniest comments you've ever seen? I think I've been fairly lucky and came out of this stepping out into the social media world fairly unscathed. I can't say I've lost any sleep over any comments that have trickled in. But yeah, see you next time, and thanks for watching.